Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer, the 15-hour work week, what ancient humans did all day. Let's jump right in. I want you to take just a second and think about exactly how you woke up this morning. Chances are, it was to the jarring sound of an alarm clock, right? You probably had a tight schedule to keep, a place you absolutely needed to be, and this massive list of tasks just waiting for you. But imagine waking up simply when your body is actually ready. No alarm, no brutal commute. You just sit up, stretch, and ask yourself, what should I do today? For 99% of human history, roughly 300,000 years, that wasn't some hypothetical fantasy. That was literally every single morning. The stark contrast between our modern, hyper-scheduled mornings and the natural rhythms of our ancient ancestors is honestly staggering.
Section 1. The 90,000-hour trap. Let's take a look at the modern work illusion.
Okay, let's dive into this, because examining our modern existence brings up a really fascinating and frankly kind of shocking number, 90,000. That represents the total number of hours an average modern human is going to spend working in their lifetime. Let that sink in for a second. That is roughly 1/3 of your entire waking existence dedicated solely to a job. And we've completely normalized this immense block of time as just the standard price of living.
What's absolutely wild is how different our 90,000-hour modern grind is compared to the past. For the overwhelming majority of human history, jobs literally didn't even exist. There was no boss, no wages, no corporate ladder to climb. Instead, ancient humans spent only about 15 to 20 hours per week securing their survival. I mean, that's a tiny fraction of our modern 40-hour-plus work week, so it kind of makes you wonder, if they weren't clocking in, what exactly were they doing with all that time?
Section 2. Proof in the bones. Let's examine the skeletal evidence.
Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. It sounds way too good to be true, right? You might be wondering how anthropologists and archaeologists can actually prove early humans lived this leisurely way. Well, the data is rock solid. Back in 1963, archaeologist Richard Lee tracked the daily activities of the Juhanzi people in Botswana, a group living very much like our pre-agricultural ancestors. He found that adults spent only about 17 hours a week acquiring food. And the absolute most crucial point here is that this wasn't just some fluke. Whether we're looking at the Hadza in Tanzania, the Ashe in Paraguay, or the Martu in Australia, across completely different environments and continents, the pattern holds perfectly steady. About 15 to 20 hours a week for survival.
And you know, the evidence goes way deeper than just modern observations. It's written right into the physical reality of our ancestors. When archaeologists compare the skeletons of early agricultural farmers to ancient hunter-gatherers, the difference is literally night and day. Early farmers were actually shorter and suffered from cavities because of those grain-heavy diets. Their spines showed arthritis from all that back-breaking, repetitive labor, and they died younger. Meanwhile, ancient hunter-gatherer skeletons show us they were taller, stronger, had healthier teeth, and way less joint damage. So the bones definitively prove that early farmers engaged in much harder, more body-breaking labor than those supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers. So if you really want to know what they did with all that free time, the archaeological record gives us this beautiful clue: art. 100,000 years ago in South Africa, someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to collect seashells, spending hours drilling holes in them to make jewelry. 40,000 years ago in Germany, somebody carefully carved a 5-hole flute out of a vulture bone, meaning they completely understood pitch and music. And 30,000 years ago in France, people spent countless hours deep inside caves by firelight, painting these incredibly sophisticated animals on the walls. None of this had any immediate survival benefit. They did it for beauty, for meaning, and honestly, just because they had an abundance of time.
Section 3. A day in the life. The ancient routine.
So, what did this actually look like on a daily basis? Let's step right into the shoes of an ancient human for a typical job-free day. You wake up around dawn. Breakfast is just leftovers from yesterday, and it's super social. By mid-morning, you might head out to hunt-or-gather, or maybe you just hang around camp to craft some tools or weave a basket. Now, because humans are persistence hunters, meaning we can track animals at a steady jog until they literally collapse from exhaustion, a hunt might only take 3 to 6 hours. Because of that incredible efficiency, by early afternoon, your productive day is completely entirely finished. The rest of the day, it's entirely yours. Even the way they slept was fundamentally different. They utilized what we call ancient biphasic sleep. Before artificial light, humans didn't just crash for one continuous 8-hour block like we try to do now. They actually slept in 2 phases. They'd have a first sleep of about 4 hours, then they'd wake up for 1 to 2 hours in the pitch black, and then settle in for a second sleep of 4 more hours. That midnight wakefulness, that was a special time for quiet reflection or hushed conversation. It's funny, modern society mistakenly treats waking up at 2 a.m. as this terrible insomnia, but for our ancestors, it was just a completely natural, peaceful part of their daily rhythm.
Section 4. The art of doing nothing. A vital survival strategy.
This brings us to a concept that is deeply uncomfortable for modern society: the art of doing nothing. We really need to completely reframe this because it wasn't a modern sin of unproductivity, it was an ancient, absolutely vital survival strategy. Take the 6-hour social investment, for example. Anthropologist James Sussman documented that hunter-gatherer adults spent roughly 6 hours a day just engaged in social time, talking, laughing, telling jokes, grooming each other. You have to remember, in a world with no money, no written contracts, and no police force, your survival depended entirely on your relationships. If people didn't like you, they simply didn't have to share their food with you when you were hungry. So investing enormous amounts of time into doing basically nothing but hanging out wasn't lazy. It was exactly how ancient humans maintained the bonds necessary to stay alive.
And what's super fascinating is how these interactions shifted the moment the sun went down. Anthropologist Polly Wisner analyzed hundreds of hours of conversation recordings. During the day, talk was very practical, right? Where are the animal tracks, who isn't sharing fairly, complaints like that. But at night, around the fire, a massive 81% of conversations shifted to stories, myths, and jokes. That glowing firelight was literally the incubator of human culture. Gods, spirits, the origins of the world, all these complex ideas were actually born during these hours of nighttime leisure. And you can really only explore those big ideas when your stomach is full and you feel completely safe.
Section 5. The agricultural trap. The end of leisure. But of course, this era of peaceful leisure couldn't last forever. About 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, a dramatic turning point happened that pretty much ended the hunter-gatherer lifestyle for most of humanity. We call it the agricultural trap. Humans started planting seeds and domesticating animals, and at first, it probably seemed great. Farming yields more food, but more food means you can feed more people, which triggers rapid population growth. Within just a few generations, there were simply too many mouths to feed through simple hunting and gathering. Humanity became locked into this inescapable cycle, requiring exponentially more relentless labor, plowing, weeding, harvesting, and defending crops. Agriculture wasn't just some neat invention, it was a trap. One that created too many mouths to feed and birthed the whole concept of endless labor, specialists, and eventually, the jobs we have today.
Section 6. The price of productivity. Let's talk about the modern costs.
Which brings us to the ultimate cost of our modern system when you stack it up against the prehistoric way of life. Today, we endure 90,000 hours of labor to chase these completely invented societal standards of wealth, achievement, and success. But the prehistoric reality? It was vastly different. Ancient humans woke up every single morning already free. They were at peace, feeling like they were enough, with absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. The grand irony of all this is that ancient humans were already living the stress-free life of leisure that modern workers spend their entire 90,000-hour existence just trying to retire into.
There is a quote that powerfully summarizes this grand human trade-off. We traded freedom for food security, leisure for population growth, time for productivity. We aren't a different species than the humans who painted those caves 30,000 years ago, but we live so fundamentally differently that we honestly might as well be. I want you to really truly internalize what was lost in the name of progress and productivity.
And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Knowing what our ancient ancestors had, those deep social bonds, the abundant free time, the total lack of endless stressful labor, and looking at the 90,000-hour grind we've built for ourselves today, was the trade worth it? It's a question that profoundly challenges how we view the modern 40-hour work week. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll leave you to ponder that exact question.